Hey folks, John Henry, LowGenius.net here with you once again. There's been a lot going on this last couple of weeks. I'm going to try to kick out a few videos here, but the first thing that I want to talk to you about is this Verizongate thing that's going on. There were some stories in the news over this last week or so that the federal government has been seizing or requesting phone records from Verizon that show, millions of people's phone calls and sort of a data mining operation. They weren't looking for anybody in particular or anything in particular. They just said, give us all the data you've got. Now I've got a problem with that, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, we need to deal with a couple of things. First of all, this is not a new thing, okay? There was news stories about it in 2006 when the Bush administration was doing it. The current laws under which this was done, and it's legal, by the way. It's not ethical, but it's legal. The laws under which this was done is the Patriot Act, okay? That's what makes this legal. And it's been around a lot longer than the Obama administration, in case people have forgotten, which it appears most of them have. And again, we'll get into that in a minute. I want to be careful here because I don't mean to say by any stretch of the imagination that I'm okay with it. I'm certainly not going to run some bullshit line about, oh, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to be worried about, because that's a crock. The bottom line is, if you look closely enough at the laws in this country, you can find any excuse you want to nail anybody. Anybody. I don't care how above the law or how law-abiding you think you are. If the federal government wants to drag your ass into court for something, they will find a reason, and they will make it stick. Okay? This kind of surveillance has been going on for decades. There are things that we know about. There are things that have only been hinted at. When I was on FidoNet over BBS systems in the late 80s and early 90s, I remember a guy who posted as a joke, a very stupid one, but as a joke, he posted a list of top 10 reasons to assassinate George Bush. And this was George H.W. Bush, the first one. And within 48 hours, this guy, who was in Eastern Canada someplace, had the Secret Service and the RCMP at his house shaking their finger at him. And this was just not a little tiny dial-up bulletin board system, way before there was a World Wide Web or any of that shit, okay? There were jokes back then about the National Security Agency line eater. All right, your data has been being peeked at and poured over by the federal government for 30 years at least. And before this technology was available, there were other ways. I think it was Bill Maher said something on one of his shows recently about, fucking J. Edgar Hoover used to hide tape recorders under Martin Luther King's hotel room beds, right? No warrant for that shit, of course. It's been going on for a long time. And for a long time, people like me have been trying to stand up to that and to bring it to people's attention to say, hey, this is wrong. We got to put an end to this. This is intrusive. It's invasive. It's a violation of our rights. And because we seem to have such broken thinking patterns in this country these days, and I don't think that's an accident either, it gets blown off and dismissed, right? It's the good American response. Well, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to be worried about. Well, I got news for you. You got something to be worried about. Now, I got to break this up a little bit because I got to address two different audiences here. And first I want to address the Republicans who are all up in arms and, oh my God, that evil Obama. Look, not only did this not start with Obama, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when people like me, when people like the Electronic Frontier Foundation were standing there screaming with our hair on fire, hey, this is happening, you got to make sure this doesn't happen, you people didn't give a shit, okay? Not a one of you. Certainly not the 70% of you who in 2003 responded to a Washington Post poll saying that you believe that Saddam Hussein was directly involved with 9/11. And that's not 70% of Republicans, that's 70% of everybody. So you can save your righteous indignation, because the bottom line is the only reason you give a rat's ass about this in this context is the fact that it's Obama doing it. You didn't care when Bush did it. You didn't care when his father did it. You didn't care when it was going on during the Clinton years. You didn't care about it under Reagan. I'm pretty sure the last time anybody in this country really gave a shit, outside of a few small circles, about clandestine recording of conversations was during Watergate. So spare me your upright, uptight horseshit about how angry and upset you are. You should have been angry and upset when this shit started. It's just like Megyn Kelly climbing up those two guys' asses on Fox News earlier this week for their remarks about working women, right? This woman collects her paycheck and spews the lies and repeats the bullshit and keeps people stirred up over nothing all week long until it comes back on her. Then it's a big problem. Piss off.